First step in completing the square, we're going to take this constant over to the other side. I'm going to add 40. Got n squared plus 18n. Leave a little space right there, and that's equal to 40. Next step, I'm going to take half of the b term and square it. The half of the b term, half of that is 9. 9 squared is 81, and I'm going to add that to both sides. I'm then left with n squared plus 18m plus 81 equals 121. That's convenient. It's a perfect square, so that'll be good later on. Next thing I can do is factor this stuff on the left side, and it'll factor into n. What adds to give me 18 and multiplies to give me 81. That's positive 9 and positive 9. And I can rewrite that as 9 plus n squared equals 121. What's convenient is both of these are perfect squares. I can take the square root of both of these. Square root of n plus 9 squared and the square root of 121. The square root of something being squared is always that something, so I've got n plus 9 equals, this is where your plus or minus comes into play. Plus or minus 11 is the square root of 121. Next step, I'm going to take this 9 over here, and I'm left with n equals negative 9 plus or minus 11, and so that'll be n equals negative 9 plus 11, or n equals negative 9 minus 11. So my final answers are going to be n equals 2 or n equals negative 20. Next, completing the square cut problem, we're going to do the same steps. We're just going to end up with a little bit different answer. So I'll have k squared minus 12k, leave a little space, equals negative 18. And I am going to take half of this negative 12, that's negative 6, square it, and get positive 36. What you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. So I'm left with k squared minus 12k plus 36 equals 18. And that's not as convenient as our last one. The last one we ended up with 121. 121 is a perfect square. 18 is not a perfect square. So we won't have to deal with it here in a second. I can still factor this left side. What adds to give me negative 12 and multiplies to give me 36? Negative 6 and negative 6. I can rewrite that as k minus 6 squared equals 18. And the next step, just like we did over here, we're going to take the square root of both sides. And this just isn't going to be a perfect square, so I'm going to take a square root. K minus 6 squared equals square root of 18. Over here is nice and easy. The square root of something being squared is just that something. And then the square root of 18, if you want to punch it in your calculator, you can see that it is, what, 3 square roots of 2 maybe? And then I'm going to, don't forget the plus or minus, I about did. Plus or minus 3 square roots of 2. We're going to add the 6 over here. Get k equals 6 plus or minus 3 squared root of 2. And you can leave your answer like that, or you could write it as two of them. You could write k equals 6 plus 3 square roots of 2, or k equals 6 minus 3 square roots of 2. Next problem, whenever you see something like this, the first thing you want to notice is that 4 will go into all 3 of these. And so with that equation there, I can divide everything by 4 and I'll still get the same answer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide that by 4, divide that by 4, divide that by 4, and divide that by 4. And so then I'm just left with x squared plus 4x minus 12 equals 0. And then I can do all the same steps as before. The next one is the trickier one. So this one's not a nice answer because I have an odd number as my b term. So when I take this over here, leave my little space, when I take half of negative 11, that's negative 5.5. And you have to square that. Negative 5.5 squared is positive 30.25. And what you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. And so now it's all the same steps. So I've got n squared minus 11n plus 30.25 equals, that's just 6.25. And then I can factor this into the perfect square, and my little cheat right here, it's always going to be this number down here if it's going to go right there and right there. So I've got n minus 5.5, n minus 5.5. And I'll end up with n minus 5.5 squared equals 6.25. And next step is to square root. So I've got n minus 5.5. Make sure you can see. Square root equals square root of 6.25. And the square root of 6.25, I believe, is 2.5. Don't forget your plus or minus. And you can take the 5.5 over here. We got n equals, what, 5.5 plus or minus 2.5. And so your two answers, 5.5 plus 2.5, or n equals 5.5 minus 2.5. So n is going to equal, what is that, 8, or minus it would be 3.